Time now for Golf Today Roundtable as we welcome in Golf Channel senior writer Ryan Lavner and Taylor Zarzar, the host of The Starter on Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio. Taylor, I want to start with you. We're almost at the end of this FedExCup Fall. We have a fairly clear picture of what it means for the players in terms of securing their status. We kind of know what it means for hardcore fans who are going to watch this product wherever it's on, and no matter who's playing. Does it work overall, though, in your mind, in terms of the broader appeal of the professional product of men's golf?
Yeah, I do wonder if maybe we need to secure someone's playing privileges in August. You know, at the Wyndham Championship, we're doing that for a number of years, and there seemed to be more drama there because it was before football season, and it's ending on network television, and you're seeing someone whether their playing privileges are going to be secured for the following season of the PGA Tour, or they're going back to the Korn Ferry Tour. I'll be in Sea Island next week. I love it there. I think it's great that the fall, we've created some more juice around the fall. I just don't know that the casual fan is that aware of what we're doing this time of year. You're right about the diehard fan, and I still think that there needs to be some sort of battleground playing privileges that are at stake in the fall. But I do wonder if maybe it makes more sense to decide who's on the PGA Tour for the following year in August instead of in late November. And I cannot wait to see whether you or Hoggard asks Lavner about this playoff beard and if this is a result of losing to Ole Miss last week.
Great transition. Lav, you okay? First and foremost, we see all the Georgia stuff in the background. We'll go ahead and give you the floor.
It's fine. All wrongs can be righted this weekend against Tennessee.
I believe in that. We'll pivot to something else. The European Tour is wrapping up their season. Of course, the top 10 who aren't already exempt for the PGA Tour, they earn a card. And this has led to a larger conversation about if the proposal passes next week and you have fewer cards, fewer members, which pathway, which pipeline is more important to make it to the PGA Tour, the Korn Ferry Tour or the European Tour?
Rex, I think you could make the argument that the DP World Tour is the more important pathway to the PGA Tour, and I think it sort of extends beyond the current politicking of the moment and making sure that they're warding off the existential threat of live golf, potentially buying into the DP World Tour. You look at what has happened now with these 10 players who have graduated or will graduate from the DP World Tour to the PGA Tour. It's the first time they've done that, and 6 of those 10 players are now in position to keep their PGA Tour card. Look at Bob McIntyre, who has completely changed the trajectory of his career by graduating to the PGA Tour. You look at Matthew Pavon, who won at Torrey Pines, played alongside Bryson DeChambeau in the final group at the Pinehurst U.S. Open. Not all of those players who graduate from the European Tour are going to hit. It's obviously a big transition going from playing over there to playing predominantly in the States for the PGA Tour. But a lot of these players are so well-rounded just because of where they play. And if you're the PGA Tour, you are trying to ensure that the PGA Tour is the preeminent circuit for all these guys to compete. And so I think there are ways to get around it and even go deeper than what the PGA Tour is proposing here. You could even look at and sort of borrow a concept from the Aon Swing 5, where you're creating more in-season promotion, whether it's a guy like Matt McCarty on the Korn Ferry Tour or Tristan Lawrence on the DP World Tour. Outstanding performers, get them in onto the PGA Tour quicker. That way you're going from strength to strength and not even waiting until the end of the season.
Taylor, speaking of guys playing or not playing at certain events, Rory McIlroy mentioned last week in Abu Dhabi that there were at least 4 events that he played this year that he's not going to play next year, one of which was the FedEx St. Jude Championship, one of the 3 playoff events, which can't really have gone down too well at Tour headquarters. Does this speak to the fundamental issue in golf that the Saudis managed to exploit, which is the talent isn't contracted? They can't be told where they're going to play, unlike, you cover a lot of sports, you cover a lot of football. Those guys don't get to decide when they're going to sit a game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, there is a fundamental issue when you can take weeks off in the playoffs. And by the way, if I were Rory McIlroy, after how he played in Memphis this past year, and knowing that he was in the top 10 in the FedExCup standings and that his position wasn't going to change almost at all by playing in Memphis, it completely makes sense that he would take the tournament off in the current structure. But to your point, there has to be some sort of penalty for the best players to miss a playoff event. If they're going to be 2, 3, 4, however many playoff events they're going to be, you need those people to play in those events. I think another example, and you just mentioned other sports, Eamon, NASCAR just finished their playoffs. You can't take a week off in the playoffs and then get to the championship the final week in Phoenix if you took one of those weeks off. You have to be there in order to be eligible to play for a championship. So I don't think there's any question the PGA Tour needs to change that. After all, assuming that we get to unification, they're going to have to fix that so that the best players are playing in each of their playoff events. Now, having said that, Eamon, you know Rory McIlroy better than anybody that's having this conversation right now. If I'm Rory McIlroy, all I'm thinking about is how my schedule is going to produce a major championship victory moving forward. That is the only thing I'm thinking about when I'm planning my schedule in 2025 and beyond.
Now, Lav, I asked Todd Lewis this yesterday, and I know you like to fix things and you like to have hot takes. But if I made you the czar of professional golf for one day, two-part question. One, is the fall schedule broken, and how would you fix it?
Part A, yes, the fall series is broken. And B, I would fix it simply by trimming it. I like the idea of having a series of tournaments that have meaning, that have consequence, but they can't be 8 or 9 weeks long. You're essentially just had a 45-week regular season, and then you're adding on top of that another fourth of the season. It's just too spread out. I love the idea of Q school, where it matters, where there's nerves, where it means something, where there's actual promotion and relegation. Spreading it out over 2 or 3 months is just too long. It's too hard. It's too arduous. The hardcore fans may be paying attention, but the casual fan is not. Simply tighten it to 3 or 4 weeks and then open up the rest of the schedule for fun formats, for team golf, for more events on the DP World Tour that could be integrated in the PGA Tour schedule. It opens up a whole host of opportunities just by shortening this particular portion of the calendar.
Rex, isn't this the place to have the live events? I mean, isn't this the part of the schedule where if it's ever going to work, if that format is ever going to work, wouldn't it be at this time of the year?
Well, it would certainly seem to be an argument for guys who are advocating for a global part of the tour that post-FedExCup would certainly appear to be the open time frame. There's one question I wanted to ask both of you guys. Taylor, I'll start with you. We've heard Harrington be negative about these potential changes. Justin Lauer at the weekend, Lucas Glover, very much the same. Do you think there's enough of a groundswell of discontent among tour membership about these potentially smaller fields and fewer fully exempt players on tour that it might actually impact the vote on November 18th, or do you think that's a foregone conclusion?
It's hard for me to know how many people could necessarily impact the vote, but I would say this, in Lucas's defense, who made a compelling argument, shameless plug, on SiriusXM, what he said was, have we really tried to penalize slow play? And have we taken a shot away from a player after playing slowly, or 2 or 3? He wants serious consequences for slow play on a Thursday or Friday before you trim the fields. Try that before people are out of a job. And that to me makes sense. And I do think there's a number of players that agree with Lucas that are probably watching right now that agree with Lucas. And to his defense, I think ideally it would be nice to try that there would be some serious consequences. When you start penalizing a player a shot, a fine, you can forget it. That's no real penalty to these guys, especially with the amount of money they're making now. But you take a stroke away from them, all of a sudden you make them miss a cut because of slow play, then I think that is a serious consequence. I wonder if the PGA Tour should try that before they, in fact, trim these field sizes.
And guys, to your point, I mean, you guys just had Maverick McNeely on the show. He said, traditionally, historically, when it gets to the board level, it's rubber stamped. The PAC has done all the work. They're merely presenting to you. There's no popular vote here. There's no electoral college. It does seem like a foregone conclusion, or at least some formality. I mean, raising the bar for excellence or acceptance to the next year, I think, is something that should be applauded, something that should be recommended. I understand that there's going to be fewer players, which means fewer storylines, but there's still going to be 100 fully exempt players. The players in that other category from 101 to 125, they're still going to get roughly a dozen starts or so. There's still going to be ample opportunity for those players to change the trajectory of their careers. It's just eliminating some complacency. It's eliminating some mediocrity at the lower level, which I still think is a net positive for the PGA Tour.
That's a sentiment that's going to make you real popular next time you're out on the range there, Ryan. Look forward to that. Guys, I'm sure we'll be having this conversation again next week after the actual policy board vote. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Guys.